Welcome to the BAI show. I'm James Rankin and I am here with Mr. Timothy Brown from the TCG Group. TCG, what is it? Tell us about it.
TCG, the Charleston Group. Firstly, James, thanks for having me. This is really cool. The Charleston Group is my buyers agency that I founded and am the director of now. Started about 2 years ago. Coming up in November will be 2 years, and we help clients, investor clients only, purchase Australia-wide to buy investment properties.
Awesome. And you mentioned investor only, so no on a rocks. You just have carved this niche out and said, that's what I want to do. Is there any reason for that? Like any reason that led you to want to focus on them?
100%. So I like the black and white, I guess we can say, of the investor journey, even though there is emotions to it, of course, like you're parting with lots of money and you're, I guess, risking it. But I think the whole premise of trying to grow your wealth, trying to do something a bit different from what we're really taught to do, and leveraging the money that we can access through debt and then trying to grow wealth through that way is what I really love. And the value for me comes from the lack of education we have within Australia on people who have around anything finance. Like most people I speak to don't even understand the mortgage they are already in. So it's pretty wild. And I just want to change that. I have like a bit of a mission to educate people on that and then also have some sort of tangible change in terms of their financial position through investing in real estate.
Yeah. And your like main messaging on Instagram, like that's where you put your message out there. I follow you on Instagram. The Charleston Group. What is at the Charleston Group?
TCG, the Charleston Group.
At TCG. So on there, like a lot of, I remember recently you were talking about in one of your reels that people don't even know their mortgage interest rate. Like that's how little people look into it. Do you reckon, like, have you seen anything or can you sort of, or have you had much thought on sort of like why people wouldn't investigate even what their mortgage rate would be?
I think, and I truly believe it's just that people don't know what they don't know. So it's not a conscious denial of that information or that understanding or education. It's just that we, I use the word, are indoctrinated from a young age to sort of be taught this is the way things are done, this is how you do it, this is the normal, which is typically, some sort of higher education, a mortgage of your own home, and just work your butt off, right? And pay down debt. So I think people just don't understand the fundamental basics of finances, like an interest rate or like how a mortgage works or what it actually means, where money comes from. So they're just naive, I guess, blissfully, unfortunately, because then the bliss keeps them in that position and denies them the drive to actually go and further educate, to expose what they actually need to know.
Yeah, and it's like I have a view on it where I feel a lot of people don't want to know either. You know what I mean? Like they're scared to open up their bank accounts. They're scared to look at their mortgage rate because they're just like, they don't want to deal with that. They're happy to deal with the monthly repayment, but they're actually just scared to know what it is. And if it's higher than their friends, for instance, they'll feel like a bit of a dick. So that's, I don't know, that's just kind of what I feel in the general world of this financing thing. It's a little taboo. Like, yeah, people don't want to talk about it. I don't know why that is in Australia because I find that we are quite open to that, but yeah, people don't like receiving information around that, right? Like, which is a lot of your message. Like I find you are very well educated in the economic space, but you bring it to a level that people can understand. And that's what you do really well through your content.
Yeah, thanks, James. I think taboo is the exact word, right? Because it's like, well, when I was growing up, like it wasn't like there was denial of talking about money, but it was definitely like you don't talk about other people's, politics or religion or really finances, which I think to a certain degree is correct, but that shouldn't stop people from then having an understanding about money. So you don't need to know what's in people's bank accounts, but to understand how money works and how to get a mortgage and all those things, like I said before, that's crucial. So I think we've gone the wrong way in regards to that. But definitely like you said, people just don't want to know because it's easier to do that. And going back to what I said, blissfully naive, is people are comfortable with the collective not knowing. Hey, we all just do this. We all just go buy our own home. We all just get into interest rate, and that's the way we work. And then we pay down debt. Yep, I paid my mortgage off the fastest, so I'm the best, or whatever it is. So it's the comfortability in the crowd, which I want to almost be the opposite. I want people to sort of understand exactly where they are financially, what they're in, and then how to grow. Because like you said, I'm into the sort of the macro and microeconomics of the world, let alone just Australia. And that started from, I guess, a drive of understanding it myself for my personal reasons to get educated, because I'm not a 9-to-5 person like that. I just can never get my head around doing that till I'm 67. Blows my mind. So that drive led to me discovering and scratching away at financial education, and that was just like opened up the world of, well, what is this monetary system we live in? What is this financial environment we're in? And I just found it wrong, really. I actually kind of went against my values. Like, this is crazy. We're taught this, but this is actually what's happening. And these people over here have this information which allows them to advance above everybody else. Mm-hmm. How do we fix this? So yeah, back to the Instagram. I started doing some content on Instagram about the very basic things, nothing too rogue, but just very simple things. And at the start, my problem was I was at an assumption of knowledge that was way too high. So then I had to really, not dumb it down, but bring it back to basics. That's when people really resonated. That's when Instagram started to get some traction.
And that's like, it's crazy to think, you said it was taboo or not really spoken about in the house. And I find you were probably similar to me, wanting to talk about that stuff with your friends. There'd be a couple that would sort of be okay with it. The rest would go, mate, you're a flog. Like, what are you talking about? You're a flog. Like, who cares? And one of the things that I've noticed a lot with what you've done on your Instagram is you have just been the friend, or talk to Instagram like the friend that wants to listen. You know what I mean? And you kind of don't care those that don't want to listen. And something that you've said, and I'm going to coin a phrase because you helped me coin a phrase and bring it to the wider audience, was authenticity is the filter. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was my initial troubles. Was I was a bit slow on not being myself, but being truly nonchalant about how people would receive me. So what I found was I was trying to think of content and create content that would cater to the wider audience. And then I think the realization came that if people don't like what I'm saying, they don't like me because I'm too tall, too short, whatever it is, or they don't like what I'm saying, and then they don't follow me, that's okay. That's fine. And so if I'm myself, and then the people who don't follow me, and the people who want to follow me, that's a filtration system, right? So, and that came from authenticity of who I am, how I want to present. And so doing that truly online in my content became the authenticity, and it created that filter. So that's where I thought of authenticity is the filter. And yeah, I'm sure you and Benny like that one. So
oh mate, it's brilliant. Like, I don't know where you came up with it, but like I heard it first on stage, like when you presented it at the Everest event, and we were all just like, what the hell? Benny and I were looking at each other just going, did he just come up with that then? And everyone was just like, that was awesome.
But
awesome. It's so true. Like, it's so true. Because I know we talk at a few levels, and people that listen to this podcast thinking about becoming a buyer's agent. You are a buyer's agent. Maybe you're just wanting to find out more about real estate industry. But it's so true. Like, speak to your people and discriminate everyone else. Like, just worry about the people that you want to connect with, and you will find them just by being yourself. Like, that's what that equals, right? Like, authenticity equals or is the filter. It's equaling your audience, the ones that want to listen to you and then also work with you. Because that's like the ultimate goal, other than putting the message out there. You want to help people buy more property, right? And your philosophy is more around that rent vesting, right? So that's like, they're the people that you want. So how have you, if you can just open up a little bit more on that philosophy, just those that don't really understand rent vesting, take us through it.
100%. I would just say, like, I coined the term the night before when I was trying to really drill down on the overarching experience they had on Instagram, which was like the goal of why I was up there as well. And then I thought, oh, that's it. That's
Awesome.
it. Right. So yeah, it came from them. But yeah, so the philosophy comes from, I guess, like I was saying before, in terms of wider education in the financial space and how the monetary system works and how we can actually leverage against that in benefit of an everyday person, an everyday Aussie. And the normal buy your own house, get into that sort of non-tax deductible debt environment, and then work your clacker off 9 to 5 to try and pay that down over 30 years as a minimum, where then if you do achieve that, which is actually considered good, you're not that much in a better financial position. Yes, you have a property that's gone up in value 100%, but to then realize those gains would have to be a sale or some sort of equity pool, which would be redoing debt again, right? So there's no cash flow producing assets. So the rent vesting strategy is more about utilizing a tax strategy of putting your investor hat on and parking your money in real estate in areas that have the data points and the fundamental and the criteria of an investment grade location and property that that's going to work for you. It's also tax deductible debt. Then with your own living, I guess, setup, you go and rent in a location that suits your lifestyle, suits your budget, and you're also going to most likely get a better dwelling in a better location just because of the way yields work, right? You never get the mortgage repayments on a nice lifestyle area, which it has that scarcity and owner-occupier appeal, is always going to have less cost to rent than it is to pay a mortgage there, if you could even have the funds and the lending and the serviceability to buy that asset as well. So that's sort of the higher level of it, is like upgrading where you're living, but on like a basic, on paper financial, I guess, analysis, it's about how do I make my situation more tax effective while still having a home to live in, a lifestyle living, with obviously some compromises there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's still home ownership as well, right? Because some people might not be able to afford the house that they want to live in. So, you know, I see that a lot from that rentvestor. I'm renting a house that I could never afford to buy. And if people had limited funds, let's just call it a single investor, so they only had one income source, they might be able to afford a $500,000 property. And if they lived in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and they were 15 Ks out of town, like that's where they grew up, they've probably got one option, and that's buying a small apartment. If they don't want to buy a small apartment, like that's not what they want to live in, they have this dream of a house, they can't afford the house, so they either do nothing or they rent vest. So that's like the opportunity. It allows them to get into the market. 100%.
And like I know a lot of friends and family and acquaintances who have been in that situation where they can't obviously afford, like let's take Melbourne as an example. Beautiful city, great place, but very expensive real estate, especially within that 20K ring, right? So we all typically grew up within that ring where our parents bought many, many years ago, and then obviously the house prices have grown substantially. So the people who now want to live in those sort of locations, especially my age where people are having kids, they want to be around the grandparents, all those things, but they still need to sort of meet that social pressure of buying your own home, right? So now they're buying out in like the Melton in the very far suburbs, right on the edge where there's nothing beyond. So when they want to go and see the grandparents who live in Ivanhoe or whatever it may be, it's hectic for them. Like it's a huge trek, and it's actually affecting their lifestyle and their relationships. So yeah, that's where like the message comes from. Hey, there's a different way of doing this without the taboo of rent money is dead money. So yeah.
And it's so true. Like, and I'm glad there's more education around that with house prices going up, because it seems like the more viable option just for a lot of people if they want to get into the market, because a lot of people won't do what you said. They're like, I'm not going to Melton. Like, I'm not going to go and live out there. Like, I've never even been out there before. Why am I going to go live there? And they will just stop in their tracks, and whatever deposit they've gone and saved, they'll probably piss it up the wall or go on a trip to Europe. And they won't go and jump on the property ladder, where this thing actually enables them to get onto the property ladder, invest, and then maybe down the track, like people still will have the dream of purchasing their own home. So, you know, your philosophy on the rent vesting, like you're obviously quite strong on that, but people can still use that as a vehicle to get into a a larger family home down the road.
100%. And to caveat what I'm saying, like everyone has to make their own decisions, and there's a certain level of, I guess, emotional comfortability that needs to be assessed there, because there's no point doing rent vesting strategy if you can't emotionally cope with it because you want to have your own walls, touch your own walls, right? Because there are limitations renting, obviously. But it's more just about education to allow people to feel comfortable that there are other ways that are okay to do and open up your aperture for opportunities, like maximizing opportunity. And then if you land back and buying your own home anyway, that's fine. You've made the decision. As long as people are educated on all their choices, that's where my angle is. And then again, to go on what you just said, that doesn't mean that you just rent for the rest of your life. It's more of a financially beneficial strategy to advance your position in the short term, to then have that long-term game of, hey, we've got a few properties. Maybe we just sell it all and then we put some in an ETF and then we buy our own home, or maybe we keep 1 or 2 properties, whatever it is, right? It's just about creating opportunity.
Yeah, 100%. And that's always been my view on investing. It was just options. When I used to explain it to people, like they'd come in and they'd see us and be like, hey, I want to buy an investment property. I'm like, why? That no one knows why they want to buy an investment property. Oh, I just thought it was a good idea. But for me, I tried to explain it to them. It gives you options, you know what I mean? And I know that's very hard to explain to people, but for me, that has been the biggest thing and the biggest benefit of getting involved in property. Like, especially investing. Like, I rent vested for many years, bought a home, lived in it, moved out closer to town, rent vested for like 6 years, and it just gave us options. Like at the end of the 6 years, it was kind of like, we can choose what we want to do. And yeah, you can sell down debt and you can do whatever you want with it. It's just the options. Like, it's just the options.
Options and opportunity. That's 100% the word, because yeah, I think just people just get caught up in single-minded thinking.
Well, it's short term, right? Like it's that short term gain of enjoyment. Like they go and, let's just say they go to Europe or whatever, versus, and I think it's still short term because you are realizing you purchased the property. So you can do that in the short term for that long-term view because you're riding the wave. So even though your property is 500,000, you're riding the wave of the increased property values across Australia.
100%.
So you are in the market. Like when we refer to being in the market, that's so that you can get a benefit from being in that market and being at a greater level. So if you buy that $500,000 property, and in 7-8 years, if you want to use some of that money, maybe there's 200-300 grand of equity in it or whatever it is, and you've ridden that wave. So yeah, it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and I speak to people pretty much every single strategy session I have. Like you said, I ask why. Like that's the start of my strategy sessions. It's more like, hey, I just want to just dive deeper on you and your thoughts about investing. Why are you here? And I've only ever had one person answer me. And when I say answer me, I mean like actually have an answer for me without sort of conjuring up a response on the spot, because most people don't know. And then you get the typical, to retire early. And then I just got more questions. What's retirement look like? What do you want to do when you retire? And we always go down the path through obviously my guidance in the conversation of, it's not about retiring at 45 and sitting on a beach in the Bahamas, which is the classic retirement sort of image.
Pina coladas.
Yeah. It's options. It's options to choose what you do with your time and energy to have the greatest amount of experiences and times with the people you love and cherish. That's my philosophy on it. And typically people have the same philosophy. They just haven't got there in their mind yet. So I like connecting that dot with people in my strategy sessions first, and then we start talking about the application of how we can get there.
Yeah. Success is the person that wakes up and chooses what they want to do.
100%.
Every day.
Yeah, 100%.
That is it. And I feel that's definitely coming through now as, millennials get a bit older and that younger view on what you should be doing with your life. I think that's starting to come back or not.
It's changing.
Come back. Yeah, it's changing.
It's hard to sort of get across to, dare I say, boomers. That word. We get cancelled. Yeah. Because they've had so much longer in their life to sort of have those like, thoughts ingrained.
Yep.
Whereas I find so many younger people are just a bit more open to different options. But I was talking to my cousin the other day, and he said he heard this sick quote was, "There's no point having a Rolex if it tells you just what time to go back to work."
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
I'm like, that's brilliant, right?
Yeah,
Because that's a measurement of what people see as success, but that's not success. And I follow a lot of like entrepreneurial, motivational sort of discipline things online myself, and most of them are sort of coming out with the rhetoric of success is time and freedom and options for yourself, not just having a nice car or having this. That's a byproduct of money, but money actually then facilitates those other things we were saying.
Yeah. So just as an overview, what sorts of, like with your particular philosophy, what sorts of properties are you buying? Like regional? Is it houses? Are they apartments? Are they townhouses? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah. So I have a pretty open philosophy and all that stuff, right? So my understanding of it all is assessing a couple of things. And one is going to be, what is the most advantaged market right now for that client to buy in? And it's based on a few things. One being mainly your resource capabilities, right? Because if you don't have the resources, and when I say that, I mean financially, do you have a deposit? Do you have finance? Do you have serviceability? Do you have cash flow? Whatever it is. And do you, not only from what the bank tells you, but like in your personal life, because the bank might be able to lend you X money, but if you're not able to take your wife or your kids out for dinner because you're trying to pay an investment mortgage, that's going to not last for you, right? There's no longevity in that. So financial resources, and then also your comfort levels of risk. So those sort of things layer on to then equal, okay, well, where's the best place for you? What's the best property? So what the sort of clients I've seemed to have attracted, and I think because of my investment journey, when I was on a government wage, pretty low wage, and I was still able to invest, we were able to invest in sort of cheaper properties and including some units. So I think had some resonation with those type of clients where we were buying cheaper. So that typically then leads us to some of those major regional markets. I love those markets. I think they're awesome when you have data-backed analysis, and then you go and invest in those regions for their time in the cycle. But obviously there needs to be strategy applied of when do we sell out of those markets? When do we scale the portfolio? And one thing I learned is in terms of scalability of a portfolio, so many people see it as just buying more properties or more value in properties. Whereas the approach I'm sort of taking on now is also scaling in quality of your portfolio. So if you only have a limited borrowing power and a limited amount of cash flow, and you can only afford in some regional areas, some 600, sub 600, sub 500, sub 400 even, then that's your options. You can't just go and buy in Eastern Sydney or whatever, because you just don't have the capability. So it's about doing that, making data-backed investments to then grow some equity, whatever it may be, based on what you can do, and then leveraging that into a higher quality asset. Or maybe you buy a few of them and then you sell down or use equity and buy bigger, better properties that then can facilitate the end goal of your options, like we're talking about. But typically, in terms of the actual dwelling types and stuff, we want to go with the land size being a larger portion, because land is what appreciates, the dwelling depreciates, as we know. So the goal is to buy in the best locations on the macro and the micro in the best dwelling type we can for that area, which is going to attract the most amount of renters and also potential buyers in the future. So that typically just ends up being largest portion of land with a house, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage. And then we just scale down in terms of the dwelling type, 3-bed, 1-bath, whatever it is, till we sort of meet the brief of the client's budget as well. But it's typically houses.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, that upgrading of assets as well over time. Like, this is a journey. Like, if it's something that you're going to go down and it's a purchasing journey, it is generally that you've got to start somewhere and you're going to make your way up to, achieving that goal. And whilst real estate can be hard to transact on, you know what I mean? Like purchasing costs, sale costs, like that can be quite a large number, especially in Victoria. Like if you're turning over $1 million property, it's about $100,000, like in and out. So you buy it, it's $50,000 or $55,000 worth of stamps, and then, you know, you've got your hold period, and then you've got probably 20K on the way out. So it can be a considerable amount of money. But when you're buying the right assets, like at the beginning, you can flip through. Like that's what we've done recently. We've sort of exchanged assets. So we bought, you know, a pool, and now we're turning those into better quality assets. So yeah, that's that purchasing journey, right? Like as you move through and you start to create like a stronger portfolio, you're working out your ratios on cash flow to capital growth. Like you're gonna have your cash cow, and then you're gonna have a capital growth, or, you know, a more blue chip type property, or considered blue chip. Yeah, it just allows you to continue on doing what you want to do and get to that options.
Yeah. I think, sorry, if you...
Go.
Also, what you were saying before is people's timelines. I think people have a subjective view of short, medium, long term. I think people are way too condensed. So when you're talking about the journey, they go, it might be a medium term journey, and they're talking about 5 years. Like,
yeah.
What are you talking? You're 30.
Yeah.
Like, relax. You're 35. Like, so I think people need to extend what they see as a time frame for building a portfolio and trying to build wealth and stuff like that. And they're going to be, I guess, just less anxious about it, right? Because you try, I need capital growth, blah, blah, blah. Why hasn't it grown? It's been 2 months. Like, relax. Yes, I know we do get some of these results that are awesome for clients, but that's very micro. We need to be looking over the long term, like you were saying, with that overarching journey that gets us to the end of the goal. And you don't only have to look at, like, say, major investors like Warren Buffett, and where they made all their wealth was at the last sort of few years.
Yeah. It's funny, like our philosophy when we're talking to investor clients, it's like 15 years. We're buying this property, you can't sell it for 15 years. Like that is the mindset. And some would go, what do you mean? Like 15 years? I'm like, yeah, well, that's what it is. Anyone who's made a ton of money in this, like if you see people who, you know, might be on the newspaper or anything like that, they've been doing this for like 40, 50 years. Of course they're going to make money. You know what I mean? They're buying stuff when there weren't even any roads there, and now they own 50 houses in that location. Like that's where they've made their money. It's just the time. Like it's time in the seat.
Yeah, and people so short-sighted with that. It's almost frustrating for me because there's a bit of like a victim mentality in Australia around property and property investing, and people sort of wanting to have high expectations about where they want to live and what everybody else had and how much it was so much easier for them. But they don't equate for time. I believe they don't equate for the time that those people have held those assets. And then going back to the start of this conversation, on top of that, like macroeconomics and inflation and all those types of things. So they're looking right now on what's in front of them and behind them, but they're not looking way ahead. So they will then have people who are not born yet, not born for a long time, saying, oh, you bought this for that. Like, you're so lucky, even though they bought in, say, Melton. Do you know what I mean? So it's just, we're going to have a continuous population growth, continued devaluation of our currency. Property prices will continue to go up forever. It's an essential need, blah, blah, blah. So just a matter of time between them now being in that exact same situations that the people they're complaining about. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. Yeah. Like, yeah, we're complaining about people because they were born earlier than us. And it's going to happen again. You know what I mean? Like, just that was the situation. They just bought a house and we get upset at them for no reason. You know,
and I can
what I mean?
guarantee you 95% of those people had no sort of intentional and analysis and
no
sort of pre-purchase analysis of that. It just happened because typically time in the market will outperform everything.
Well, you see, like those areas, even Ivanhoe, like you look at Ivanhoe or Heidelberg, like there's parts that are close to the city. There's no chance that they were considered a blue chip or, a higher classed sort of area. And it's just naturally progressed because of population density and infrastructure and like all that kind of stuff. And people have now considered those to be good areas or like expensive areas. But you walk around the streets and it's, little old Nonna going for a walk down the road or, there'll be like a 30, 40-year-old car in the driveway and you're just like, yeah, those people had no idea. They just bought their family house.
And they got a $4 million house.
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And I actually did a video of this on my Instagram just to sort of highlight inflation over time. And I just picked a random property in a suburb that my parents live, Alphington, and a very modest, small, weatherboard home sold recently for 2.1, I believe it was. 3-bedroom, 1 bath, like nothing special. Someone bought it like for 200 grand in 1998, and someone bought it before that for like 30 grand for like 10 years before.
Yeah.
Like 30 grand.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So yeah,
That price growth through those prop pockets are just wild.
absolutely nuts.
Like absolute nuts. Where it was, you could have bought 200 grand in Alphington or 200 grand in Diamond Creek. You know what I mean? Or maybe even further. I don't know if there was any other areas that were getting built up out there.
No, I think that was the edge.
That would have been the edge, right? And now the price difference, like a property in Diamond Creek would probably be worth $1 million versus the one in Alphington at $2 million.
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy, that disparity. But it shows that there are areas that perform better than others.
100%. And it was just closer. So it's just that urban sprawl, land scarcity, and then demand on top of that. Yeah.
I saw it in my own experience buying property. Like when the first property that we built or bought, we built. So I think it was like $420,000, and that was a little bit further out. Like it was just a little bit, further out of town. And our friends bought closer to town. Like this is in the outskirts of Melbourne, and they paid like 406. This is on the flip side. Like it changed a little bit. Who knows what it's going to do in the next 20 years? Because it maybe, theirs will go up. But their newer area was more sought after. So the prices just went through the roof. Like they continued to go, up over 800,000, and the more established house sat at around that like 700 mark. But that's just because people wanted the new thing. Like they just kept wanting the new. But no doubt over time, as I said before, like the land value, because it was a much bigger block, it's like a 750 square meter block versus 590 in the new area, that'll go up in value and it'll overtake it down the road.
And that new area will be the old area in the future.
Yeah, 100%. It's already getting there. Like it's over 10 years old now. So it is the old area for the new area.
Yeah, there you go. and then typically when you're building and buying those properties, you pay a premium for them because you have the marketing, the builders margins and all that stuff built into them. So you do see those home and land packages do have that kind of increase like that outside of established properties. But yeah, we'd always prefer to buy the established, especially when you can, if people have cash injection to then actually do it up, do a bit of a renovation or whatever, that's where you can add true.
Yeah,
true
it doesn't
value.
work. Back then it worked because the land value was so much lower than the build cost. But now you're paying, like I've seen some estates where it's $1 million just for the block.
Oh,
and then you got to go put a house on it.
It's insane. Like look at say Doreen.
Yep.
That was proper rural.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And you could buy home and land packages of 300-400 grand, and now that it's selling for $1 million in some of those areas, it's absolutely wild.
It's crazy. So that like changeover from land, I saw it. Like I was in the industry where it was like 120 grand to get a block, 30, 40, 150, 160, 170. People were like, what the hell? It's $170,000. It was 200 houses were around that like 200 mark, and then it just kept going. So it went well past the price of the house, and then people started to like have to cut back on the houses. But
it's going to stop now, right? Though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, exactly.
And you have microeconomic cycles, but it's not just done now, and that's what so many people think is going to happen now. Well, it's done.
Yeah,
it's done now. It's like no. You'll continue to be amazed by the growth of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And there's so many more factors at play.
Yeah, it's just that value of the land, right? Like just keeps pushing along.
Yeah. And I think that goes back down to like what we were originally talking about, where we delved into this a bit deeper, is the people's understanding of timeframes.
Yeah.
So like so I bought a property in Adelaide for, I think it was 380 a few years ago. It's probably worth 800 now. So like a really good growth. And then it's like, okay, we could sell that and then take that money. It's like, or hold it for another 20 years. And you know what I mean? So there's like the short-term mindset of, oh, let me take this now and stuff. Now, there are options where you can then take gains and then redeploy and then continue to invest. But if you're just sort of taking it to think, oh, done now, I made a bit of money, I think you're actually missing out because your time frames are way too short.
Yeah, 100%. Like that's if you're going to upgrade the asset, you need to get back into the market. Like it's changing over that property type. That's just what you have to do. Shifting it up a bit, I know your background, but you're a very structured person, and even, the ability to put up a post on Instagram every day for the last, 120, maybe 180 days, like 9 months. That takes a lot of discipline. You've now bumped that to 3 times a day, which is crazy. But where does that all come from? Like, take us back, like before you started TCG, what were you doing beforehand?
Yeah, so I have like a military and law enforcement background. I spent just under 7 years in the Army, in the Royal Australian Armoured Corps as a cavalryman. And then more recently, I joined the Australian Border Force when I discharged from the Army. So Border Force for the last 3 years now, which I was doing simultaneously with spinning up the business as a buyer's agent. So particularly the Army, that's where I get my structure from. Mark, that's a very highly structured, highly disciplined organisation, and you have to comply and you have to adopt those methods and that sort of sequencing of your life and those skills, etc. So I naturally am like that. Like if my bed's not made in the morning, I'll freak out, right? Not like in a crazy way, but it has to be done. It's just in my opinion, it's like that is the right thing to do. That is the task at hand. Do it. I don't care if there's no excuses. It's so simple. Just do it. So anyway, I sort of really slotted into the military life well like that, highly organised and structured. And then that's just led me to a mindset of getting outcomes from being like that. Mm-hmm. And also then getting over emotional waves that knock people on whatever journey they're on, whether you don't feel like going to gym, whether you don't feel like saving that $100 a week that you're meant to save, or don't feel like eating that you weren't meant to eat, whatever it is. Those disciplines, those structures allow me to bypass those moments. Not all the time. I'm not superhuman, but it gives me the foundations that 90% of the time I'm doing exactly what I need to be doing to get to exactly where I want to go. So that's where I live my life still structured like that, taking all those lessons on board and apply that to my business as well, or how I run my business. And then, again, it feeds into producing content, like something as simple as that. I don't always do it. Sometimes things happen. Like I said, you just got to adapt, but the consistency comes from discipline applied as much as you can. And if that's 90%, that's fine. But as long as you're chugging along. So that's the philosophy I take.
Yeah, I feel people just make excuses. It's like what we were talking about before. There's the entitlement of success, not only in personal life, like through the houses, like this should be mine. I should be able to afford $1.5 million house or whatever it is. I feel it's similar in business. You know what I mean? Like if you're getting into this BA space or any space, it's going to take some hard work. It's going to take some graft to get to where you want to. You can't just be expectant and say, I speak to people and they'll be like, oh yeah, I wanted to follow the Subway chat, or I listened to your training with Tim and blah 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 blah. I'm like, so cool. How's it all going? Yeah, I'll put up a post. When did you put up a post? Last week. Cool. Where's the others? You know what I mean? Like, what else have you done?
Yeah.
And that's the the realization of what it actually takes to succeed in this business, but also the consistency, the structure that you do need to just focus on what, like making your bed. You have to do it. It's the job at hand. Just get it done. And that's what I feel a lot of people forego, and they'll just piss fart around. They'll dodge what they actually have to do. They'll focus on the stuff they want to do, not what they have to do. And it's eating badly, right? Like I want to go and eat a Macca's burger. I want to, but it's bad for you.
Yeah. And not to say that I've always got my shit squared away, that you have moments of weakness, you have moments where you just can't do it, whatever it is. No one's perfect, right? But it's just, is the percentage of you being structured and disciplined that's aligned with what your goals and values are more than not. That's typically going to be a better outcome. If you can work to build that up, that's going to be perfect. If you start like that, what typically happens, and I consider like your discipline is like a muscle. So the more you work it, the stronger you get at it. So you actually just start increasing that, and then you start taking all those 1%, whatever it is in life, and it's actually like a snowball. It just keeps snowballing. It becomes so much easier.
Yeah.
But you just got to start. But yeah, it's funny. I think way too many people operate on their emotions and motivation, but like they wane. It's only discipline that is constant.
Yeah.
So you got to act on discipline, otherwise it falls apart. And there's way too many excuses out there. And even if what you're saying is correct, even if it is shit, unfair, whatever it is, and I still 100% struggle with this shit every day. So do the job, do the thing, because if you don't do the thing, you don't do the thing.
Yeah, and you're not going to get the outcome.
That's right.
Yeah. And so you said you're not superhuman. When the wheels do fall off, do you limit that to a certain time frame? Like, is it one day and you have to do it the next day? Like, is that sort of what you limit yourself to?
I think I catch myself earlier, so I try not to. It's more so a real quick moment where I just go, what am I doing? That's it, enough, stop. And then I switch straight back on. Because, yeah, I try not to be like, okay, well, then just take the day or whatever like that. Like that, and I'm talking about like the discipline stuff. Because, yeah, I just get to a point where I think, what am I doing? I'm just making excuses. I'm just piss fighting around, like in any facet, whatever it is. But like typically, even like for instance, gym, I'm like, oh, I'll go at 11 or whatever. And the part of me's just like, boom, go, get up and go. What are you doing? So I don't know. It's just sort of like a switch that changes in me. It's almost like a fail safe that I've built in. Because like I was saying, discipline and those sorts of structures are like muscles. So because I've been practicing that for many, many years, particularly within the army, I find it a bit easier to sort of boom, come straight back on.
Yep.
But like, yeah, no doubt that other people struggle more with that.
Yeah, so you don't even allow yourself to not do it. You just catch yourself feeling that you might not achieve that thing.
Yeah.
And you slap yourself and you go, get on with it. It's like
100%.
3, 2, 1 that we've spoken about before.
100%. Like go and look at my Instagram. Like most of those videos are done at late at night when I can't be bothered, and I'm like, I got to go do this, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to do it, but just because my day is sort of blown out, especially with kids at the moment. It's wild. Like I don't control all my time with, well, I do, but in terms of like, I'm not going to sit there and film an Instagram video over like my child screaming, needing a nappy change or something. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a level. So sometimes I find myself having to go, and when I can't bother, I just want to go to bed. Hey, I just need to post this content. Not because like, and I'm realizing this now, not because there's a reward for me to do that, whether it's a sale or views or whatever, because I said I was going to do it. Mm-hmm. Because I said I was going to do it. And when I did a presentation at the Everest boot camp, and one of my things was for a piece of advice is like, don't lie to yourself. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Like, do not disrespect yourself. So that's where it comes from, more so than like a reward.
Yeah. And that's the difference, right? Like you didn't say it to anyone else other than yourself. And the key difference is that you respect yourself, and maybe others don't. Like maybe a lot of people don't respect their own words. So they have to like build that skill, build that trust back with themselves, and know that they can actually do it, because you know you can do it, and you have established that trust and the respect for your own words, which is why you just don't go against them. And the 3, 2, 1, like that I mentioned before, that's like exactly what I feel. I don't say those words unless I am. It's done. Like as soon as I say it's done. You know what I mean? Like it's just, I have absolute respect for those 3 words.
You don't negotiate with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, unfortunately, so many people don't have that respect for themselves, but they don't consciously do it. Like they're not sitting there being like, you know, F me, whatever. They just don't understand the impact of those conversations that go on internally, that if you're not doing what you want to do, that actually creates a negative. Yeah,
it's just today. Feeling. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah.
You feel shitty. And do you know what? Even when it feels shitty when you're doing it, there actually is a reward, because once I do that thing, I'm like, oh, that's so relieving.
Yeah,
that's
it's
awesome.
a massive checkbox.
Oh man, I'm so glad. What was I complaining about? Why was I so worked up? You know what I mean? You have this like crazy retrospective like insight of, what was I bitching about? I just had to get the thing done. Like that was it.
When I'm in those rhythms, it's you finish your day at like 2:30, 3 o'clock. You know what I mean? Like I wake up early anyway, but if you are smashing through stuff, you can do whatever you want for the rest of the day. Most of the time I find myself back doing work and stuff anyway, but I could go to the shops. I could go down to the beach. I could go for a walk and I wouldn't feel guilty for it because I've done all the stuff I need to do today.
Yeah. Guilty is the word. There's no anxiety feeling and stuff like that. So it's like, get it, front load your days.
Yeah.
Like it's a proper hack.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So mate, as we round out, I always ask a question. What would you say to someone that was thinking about being a buyer's agent, or even if you are a buyer's agent and you're just wanting to, crack the code and really get this business firing, what would you say to them?
Yeah. What would I say to them? So I think firstly, it's okay if you don't want to start your own business and be an entrepreneur. Like it's totally cool to have immense passion about property and buyer's agency and work with another buyer's agent, because the space that is around today in the buyer's agency space, there is so much opportunity there to start your own, work with others, grow with others, plug into very established whatever it is. So don't feel like you have to do this sort of thing on your own. If you do, 100% get help. Like if you understand the power of outsourcing because you're a buyer's agent and you're trying to impose that value of outsourcing to somebody else, then you should understand that yourself, that you may need to outsource to help you and yourself, whether it's coaching, whether it's whatever it is. So just get a grasp, set timeframes. Don't be too hard on yourself, but stay disciplined and structured.
Love it. Tim, thank you so much. TCG. See you soon, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it, mate.